Today's episode is sponsored by Midwest Fire. For more than 20 years, Midwest Fire has been manufacturing high-quality tankers, tanker pumpers, and fire rescue vehicles in the United States and Canada. Keeping firefighters safe while enhancing their capabilities is what they do best. To learn more, go to MidwestFire.com.
We can dance, everybody look at your hands. We can dance, everybody's taking the chance. Safe to dance, oh it's safe to dance. Yes, it's safe to dance.
Hello and welcome to episode 256 of the Situational Awareness Matters show. I'm your host, Rich Gassaway. The purpose of this program is to help improve situational awareness and high-risk decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-stress, high-consequence, time-compressed environments with changing conditions. The SAMatters mission is a simple one. We want to help you see the bad things coming in time to avoid bad outcomes. I'm coming to you today from my office in St. Paul, Minnesota. This week I was in Towson, Maryland, delivering a program for the Maryland Fire and Rescue Institute's National Fire Service Staff and Command program. This was my 22nd year presenting for the MIFRE Staff and Command program, and I am very appreciative of their faith and confidence in my message and the value it brings to their students. In today's feature segment, it's part one of a three-part amazing interview with members of the Thornton, Colorado Fire Department about a Mayday event that they experienced. Fire-Medic Roy Lapid was working on Thornton Fire Truck Company 75 for a single-family residential dwelling fire. Roy entered the first floor of the structure and started to complete a primary search. However, he quickly found himself falling through a fire-weakened floor into the basement below. This is Roy's story, supplemented by observations from Captain Bret Wentworth and Lieutenant Cody Larson.
District 3 on the structure fire, engine 7-3, squad 7-3, engine 7-2, truck 7-5, truck 7-4, SAM 7-1, battalion 7-1, medic 7-1, and medic 7-4 on a structure fire 11846 Josephine Street.
7 responding, Josephine.
SAM 7-1 responding.
Units en route to the structure fire. We have RP calling in stating he can smell smoke coming from the vents and he sees smoke. He is actually a neighbor.
It was kind of a drizzly, cool day outside. The call came in as possible smoke showing from a neighbor. It was not a homeowner that had called it in. But there was even some not real clarity on what the call was. There was no flame showing or anything like that. When we arrived on scene, it was about as reported, and there was very little signs of a fire in the house.
I gave my size up. It was a small 2-story residential with light smoke showing from the attic vents. I got out, did my 360. I honestly wasn't thinking basement fire. As I walked by, there was a window well on the Delta and the Bravo walls for the base mount. It was a lookout window wells. When I went by them, one of them had shades on it, and I didn't see anything for a basement fire like spalling from the concrete. The windows were still intact. I didn't see any fire or any type of smoke from there, so I wasn't thinking that. I also didn't have enough information to just say on the air that it wasn't a basement fire after my 360. So I gave my size up. I said we were going to remain in the offensive strategy, and going through the alpha side.
Dispatch from 118th Command, 360 is complete. I do have light smoke showing from the interior windows. We'll stay in the offensive strategy from the alpha side.
Engine 7-3, command.
7-3, go.
Basement status?
I'm still on the exterior getting ready. My paramedic just came out and said there is possible basement fire.
SAM-71 command.
SAM-71, go ahead.
Can you take a look at the 360 a little bit closer? Give me a little bit more information on that basement. We're seeing water coming from the Bravo side of the building from the water fixtures.
It was kind of strange at the time. We saw water coming out the side of the house through the hose bib at the water faucet on the Bravo side of the house. And we started putting the pieces together and realized that this fire was down in the basement.
When incidents progress slowly like that, when there's smoke through an entire structure, it's wise to take a little bit of time to really size it up carefully, cautiously going at it so that we don't overcommit.
I got out and I went straight to the front door, and I actually opened the front door and touched the door. It actually felt warm. I didn't see any fire, but I could see smoke coming out from the eaves and up through the roof. We got the hose line ready, bled it, and prepared to make entry. The front door was locked on the house. We did have to force the door, and me and Firefighter Morris were the first two to make entry into this house.
When the crews forced entry in the Alpha side door, there was an abundance of smoke that came out the front side. It was light gray smoke. It was not heavy black smoke, and no flames were seen. With reported light to moderate heat in the front doorway.
Made entry through the front door in the Alpha. It was a cold day, so immediately my mask condensed and fogged up. I was able to clear it with one wipe. Light smoke in the room. I saw maybe about 10, 15 feet in front of me.
Since we didn't have a good handle on homeowners, where they were at, my thought process is that we needed to get a search completed on the house to make sure that we had accountability of where the homeowners were at.
There was a staircase on the left, so I walked past the staircase and the hose lines to the living room, and there was something dark on the left side of the room. It looked like a bookcase, so I took a peek to see if there was anyone behind that bookcase. I didn't see anyone.
My first job was to find where the basement was. I wasn't exactly sure where it was. I started right behind the front door, which looked like it was a closet, and I actually found the basement door right behind the front door.
We're at the stairwell to the basement. We have moderate heat. We're going to be making entry down to the basement. Copy, making entry into the basement.
As I opened the basement door, I could see down the first run. It was half of a staircase. I could see the wall. So there was smoke coming up, but it wasn't dark smoke at all, and I wasn't really sure exactly what we had in the basement. As I turned, there was a return on the stairs, and I took one step, and the top step that was going down into the basement gave way, and Firefighter Morris grabbed my pack, and he pulled me, and we both fell to that landing.
There's some decent smoke in there. I couldn't see Roy, and Van Dissel had said, Roy just went through the floor right in front of me, and I was like, Mayday, 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 and just grabbed the mic and went with it. It was just like training. I mean, we'd gone through it before with the blue card stuff, and so I just didn't even think about it. I just knew that I wanted to be real clear about what I was saying. I couldn't believe it actually had happened. I mean, it really was 2 steps inside the door, and this isn't real.
Mayday, 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 firefighter through the floor right inside the front door. Copy, Mayday, 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 priority traffic, engine 6-3, firefighter through the floor, front door. Command, engine 7-3, give me an attic ladder at the front door. Copy, attic ladder to the front door.
Because it was a very clear, very urgent, but not stressful type of a mayday. And then it dawned on me that it was our mayday. It was somebody had gone through the floor on this particular house. From that time forward, for the next couple of minutes, were very chaotic. Span of control was lost. Crews rushed in to try and help, which complicated it even more. We did have a problem. We had several chiefs that were on hand. Everybody wanted to get in and help. and I lost my control for a little bit on who was doing what.
We have firefighters will be coming out the outside. We also see no fire in the basement at this time. Command copies, no fire seen in the basement. Also, a firefighter has been extracted coming out the outside. We still have moderate heat in the house. Firefighter has been removed, is in medical care. He is ambulating. All crews exit the structure and par.
So after taking a peek at that bookcase, my first step to the right, I instantly fell. It was a weird sensation. You never train for it or expect it. It happened so fast. I reached out initially, kind of felt some resistance, like I was able to catch myself, but then that gave through. I couldn't see initially. There was a lot of dust. I lost my tool during the fall. I was able to see light from the window on the Delta side, and then I could see light up above from the hole. I immediately looked up and called my crew, told them I was all right. Did a quick system check, nothing hurt. It was warm, there wasn't a lot of heat, but there was no smoke either. But the fact that I didn't have my tool and I couldn't really see well, I was in a tough predicament to self-extricate.
We came up with a plan instantly when I did go back upstairs, and I'm sure it sounded like a lot of chaos, but it was actually very calm on the interior, and the way it went was looking back, was very organized, even though it didn't feel like it.
I tried to reach for my radio. I couldn't grab a hold of the transmitter at first. Just out of the situation, just not really panicked, just kind of the realization that I fell through the floor. So initially I was worried about getting burned, but right when I landed there was no sensation of heavy heat. So that was strange. It was pretty surreal. It wasn't what I expected, which was a good thing. I mean, I was expecting to get hurt pretty quick.
Looked down in there and I could see Roy, and he was like, "I'm okay." So I knew he wasn't hurt right away, which was a good relief. And then right after that, I had somebody over my right shoulder right after I called the Mayday going, "What do you need?" It turned out it was Bittner, but I couldn't tell at the time, so I just went, "I need an attic ladder," and we threw it down there. And then Roy ended up getting himself up out of the basement with the stairwell. So it was definitely unexpected. I didn't see it coming, for sure.
And I opened up the wall that was at the top landing of the stairway, and that's where I could see into the basement. I couldn't see the bottom of the stairs because it was very dark at the bottom of the stairs, but through that wall I could see Firefighter Paramedic Lapid standing there. There was no fire down there, it wasn't very smoky. And then at that point I heard them getting a ladder to go into the basement, and I called to Firefighter Paramedic Lapid and told him to come to me because I had no idea exactly what was in there. I wanted him to come and stay away from a collapse or whatever was in there.
Crew unity and identification is key. My intent was to get everybody organized, deploy a company for rescue, keep companies on deck, but things progressed so quickly that before I could even get crews identified, we had the firefighter out.
We had medical immediately available for him to check him out. He confirmed that he was not injured. We did an evacuation of the building and kind of reset ourselves because we still did not have the fire located.
Once we got the crews reset, reorganized, we allowed crews into the basement, into the first floor, and to the second floor to check for fire extension, to conduct a primary and secondary search, to make sure that truly the fire was out.
The fire had extinguished itself. That's where the water had de-sweated the copper piping and had extinguished the bulk of the fire.
That was very hard for, I think, for a lot of us to make that switch, thinking that you may have lost somebody back into a strategy to attack the fire. It was a very hard transition to make.
And it is reliant upon the individual, the crews, to make sure that they don't self-deploy. As much as they want to, we still didn't know where the fire was at, and we still had a fire to put out. And so we really needed to make sure we had crews available to do that. You're gonna run out of people, and you need people coming, and you need crews available to take over that, because it sucks up all your resources so quickly.
There's just an emotional thing when it happens for real. I know we train Mayday all the time, but I don't think you really get a real grip until that type of thing happens for real. And you instantly, not only are you trying to deal with the problem at hand in a very quick matter, you're also having a lot of emotional things when you think one of your brothers fell through.
The department has done a good job of training their people to be incident commanders, to be leaders, to deploy properly, matching the strategy to the incident. However, those policies that are not current or up to date have led to ambiguity or confusion as to what we're supposed to do in the event of a Mayday. We've assembled a team of people to review this incident thoroughly. We will review our policies, we will take their recommendations, and we'll make some adjustments so that our policies match really the way we're supposed to practice as an industry standard and the way we should practice in the best interest of our member safety.
It was just frustrating that it happened. But the way it ended up was a good situation. And I think it was important. I think as a department we needed that, just to show our guys that these things do happen and we're not immune to it. And all the training we do is for these situations. You always think it's not going to happen to you, but it did. So I'm just glad it didn't end up the way most of these things end up.
I'm really proud of the work that the crews did, and the work that the crews did that day overshadowed any shortcomings that we have in policy or in practice or personal behaviors.
I'm in Thornton, Colorado today with 3 members of the Thornton Fire Department who had a very significant near miss event. And today I have with me Captain Bret Wentworth, Lieutenant Cody Larson, and Fire-Medic Roy Lapid. And we're going to start the interview off by talking about the Thornton Fire Department and the city of Thornton and give you a little bit of background information. But before we do that, I want to give our guests a chance to introduce themselves and tell them a little bit about their background. So Cody, if you want to start us off.
Yeah, absolutely. I started in the fire service in 2007 in a suburb just south of Wichita, Kansas. I was born and raised out here in Colorado, so I came back to work, found the city of Thornton. Was fortunate enough to be promoted last July and put in the training division. So that's why I'm here.
Good, welcome. Roy?
I've been in the fire service since 2011. I was a reserve firefighter for North Washington Fire at the time. Now I've been at Thornton for 6 years. Been a fire medic for about 4 years.
All right, good. Bret?
I was born and raised in Colorado, just south of Denver. I got hired with the City of Thornton Fire Department in 2002. Worked my way up through the ranks from firefighter to fire medic to lieutenant. And now I'm the captain in the training division with this guy right here.
All right, good. Tell us a little bit about the city of Thornton, the makeup of the city population, what kind of infrastructure you serve and things like that.
Yeah, so the fire department started on a volunteer basis in 1956. The city really grew pretty quickly. It's the first city north of Denver by about 20 minutes or so. Right now we've got about 120 paid, we're all career paid members of line operation members. We have 6 fire stations currently. We just opened our 6th station a few months ago, and we've got Station 7, Station 8 slated for build out within the next few years. Primarily a suburb fire department, but really growing. As a fire department, we're we're dealing with a lot of the growing pains, which are definitely a good thing. So we've seen a lot of changes recently.
For somebody who may not be familiar with Thornton, where does it sit in Colorado, or maybe where does it sit in relationship to Denver?
So we're in the Front Range, the metro area is how it's referred to, and we're the 5th largest city out of the metro city. So starting down south, you have Colorado Springs, and you go north by maybe 30, 40 miles, and then you hit the city of Denver. And then west of there is Lakewood, which is another larger city. And then we're 20 minutes north of Denver within this Front Range area. And then Fort Collins is further north from Thornton. And then for us, we do a lot of automatic aid with our neighboring jurisdictions. So it's Thornton Fire, North Metro, City of Westminster Fire, Fed Heights, Brighton, and Adams County Fire. We do a lot of automatic aid, and we do a lot of training together.
Okay. And does your department do any form of EMS?
We do. We were actually one of the first fire departments in the state that had fire-based EMS. Okay. We're an advanced life support fire department, so we have paramedics on every engine truck. We have medic units do our own transports. So we're progressive on the EMS side as well as the fire side.
Okay, and estimate for me what your annual call volume would be, and maybe break down what percentage of that might be fire versus EMS.
Yeah, so last year our call volume was just over 10,000 for 5 stations. We've opened 6 stations since then. Like most other suburban fire departments in the United States, the predominant numbers of our calls are EMS. Somewhere around that 70+% of calls are EMS calls.
Okay. And in the course of an average year, estimate for me about how many working structure fires you might get in the course of a year, to kind of give the listener and viewer a frame of your fire volume.
Yeah, I don't have an exact number. I think it's pretty congruent with other fire departments in suburban USA. 10%, 20%.
Yeah.
I mean, would you have
a couple a month?
So okay,
a couple, 2, 3 a month.
Okay, somewhere between say 30 and 100.
Yeah, that's probably
that would be safe. Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
All right. And then within those 6 stations, can you break down for me what you have in the way of engines and trucks and maybe other type of apparatus that are on the street?
Yeah, so Station 1, which is our busiest station in the south end of the city, the older part of the city, engine and medic unit out of that house. Same with Station 2, and we're going from south to north now. Station 3 is just an engine right now, and that station is being remodeled, so they're actually running out of Station 4. So Station 1, 2, 4, and 5 all have engines and medic units. And also Station 5 has a heavy rescue that they cross-staff with that crew. Station 6 is currently just has an engine, no medic unit. And then our truck, we have 1 truck for the city of Thornton, and that runs out of Station 4. And then we have a BLS, we call it a squad, which is just a BLS ambulance that runs a lot of the low acuity type calls, and they get dispatched to every structure fire in the city as well.
Okay, and then do you have any system of like battalion chiefs on duty, or is it just the administrative chiefs that respond to fires, or how does that work as far as command type staff?
Yeah, so right now we have a single battalion chief for the city, and they run out of Station 1.
How many square miles is Thornton?
What? 7? No, it's bigger than that. I want to say it's 30, 20. Yeah, just under 40.
Okay. And then what's your on-duty staffing in a day, like ideal and then average? Because, we have to count for vacations and stuff. But
yeah, anywhere from right around 36 to 40-ish.
Okay.
Per shift. And
then when you get a report of a structure fire, what is the response assignment for a structure fire call? Engines, trucks?
Yeah, standard box alarm is 4 engines, a truck, 2 medic units, the squad and the battalion chief, and an automatic aid battalion chief, and a SAM officer. That's one thing I forgot. We have safety and medical officers, one per shift. So that's what our box alarm looks like.
And then what would be the staffing on those engines and trucks?
Minimum of 3 on the engine. We try to staff engine 3 if we have the ability to have a 4th. You know, engine 7.3 would have a 4th. Our truck would have a 4th. Right now, I think the truck is pretty well staffed with 4 most of the time.
And engine 7.6 is 4-person staff.
Yeah.
Now, does your battalion chief run alone in the BC vehicle, or is there 2 people in that vehicle?
A single person.
Okay. And then how many on the squad?
2.
Okay. And then you have a auto aid battalion chief and a SAM. Is it safety? What do you call it?
The safety and medical officer. That's
Safety
for
and
us.
medical.
City of Thornton Fire Department have a SAM officer, 1 on each shift.
Okay.
But yeah, we get that automatic aid battalion chief at every structural fire we get.
Okay. And then what does that second battalion chief, do they have a typical role when they arrive? Are they going to be ops or safety, or is it just assigned as needed as to what they do?
Yeah, they arrive and they report to the command post, our battalion chief, wherever he's at. And they're there for assistance to help track resources. They can manage a division and to also assist with any Maydays that we have.
Okay, good. Thank you for that frame. April 24th, 2018 is the day that we're here to talk about. So let's kind of begin the conversation by talking about what that day was like, as far as, was the staffing typical? Was the weather typical? Was your call volume leading up to that event typical? What was happening that morning?
So that morning, it was we run a 4896. So our operations they're on for 48 hours and then they're off for 96 hours. So on this day, it was a C shift day. It was the second day of the tour, and it was in April. So around here, April, you could get any type of weather, and on that day, it did just about everything. It was a cold, overcast, very gray day. It rained. It snowed a little bit. There was a mixture of both of those going on that day. So it was a cool, rainy, overcast type day, and it was a typical day for us. We had a lot of people working that day that were either on overtime, they were on standbys, which is like a shift trade for us type of thing. And we also had people working in out-of-class capacities, like out-of-class lieutenants, acting battalion chief. The IC of that day was an acting battalion chief. At the time, he was still a captain. He's since been promoted to battalion chief. And that's a typical day for us. We have people moving from their normal districts to other districts to cover for whatever, people working on other shifts, working with people that they don't normally, work with. And that's a pretty standard day for us.
Okay. And Roy, you were on truck 75. Is that your normal assignment to be on that truck?
For that day, yeah. So later on in the year, I went down south to Station 1, but I was the only normal person on that crew. I had a probationary firefighter with me that day, and then our officer was acting out of class, and our engineer was on overtime, and that wasn't his normal district.
And your staffing on your truck that day was 4?
Normally 3.
Okay, normally 3, but you had 4 that day.
And they're usually on an engine.
Yeah. Usually on an engine. The truck was there in place of our engine. Our engine was in preventive maintenance for that.
So there's a lot of moving parts about things that were going on that day. But would that be would you call that day, in the frame that you put this under, I can just see all of this movement and temporary, and is that normal for you guys? Or would this be an abnormal day?
I would definitely say that's a normal.
Okay. So, all right. All right. So tell me about the lead into this call. Did you have, were you on any other calls, or was everything in-house when the call came in?
So engine 1 was on engine 1 and medic 1 and medic 7-1 were on a medical on the south end when it came out. Turned out to just be a lift assist. So medic 7-1 actually ended up being pretty central to the city and made the first alarm. And engine 7-1 was the only Thornton resource that wasn't added to the card, basically.
Okay.
Through a second alarm and everything. So because of being, previously occupied on that medical.
Okay. So tell me how the call was dispatched.
So the call came in at about 11:40. The RP initially called in smelling some smoke. As they were calling in, they were also walking. They were in the neighborhood, and they walked to the residence. They rang the doorbell. They could see some light smoke coming from the roof area per the RP. They rang the doorbell. There was no answer. So within that time frame, the alarm got dispatched by our dispatch, a standard box alarm for us.
Okay. Were the responding units told that the reporting parties smelled or saw smoke or anything like that? Or
Yeah, the initial report was light smoke from the roof and smell of smoke. So a lot of the arrival lens for me was an attic fire or roof fire.
Sure.
So,
And that'll be a common theme throughout this for a lot of the units. They were coming in, and I think a lot of the guys had that pre-arrival lens of an attic fire.
Yeah. Well, based on reporting party information, you could see how that might line that up. Okay, so what's on the initial response then, as far as apparatus goes?
So engine 7.3 was the first due engine, and the squad 7.3 was responding with them, and then we had engine 7.3, engine 7.2, truck 7.5, which Fire-Medic Lapid was on and was in place of engine 7.5. Truck 7.4, so that was a little bit atypical because of the engine 5 being in shops, having two trucks for us on an initial alarm, atypical. Medic 7.4, Medic 7.1, the squad 7.3, SAM 7.1, Battalion 7.1, and then our automatic aid battalion 6.1 for North Metro Fire.
Engine 6.3.
And engine 6.3, sorry.
And that's all on the first alarm?
That's the first alarm. So engine 6.3 and battalion 6.1 were both automatic aid companies. Battalion chief engine 6.3 was an automatic aid engine company from North Metro.
Okay, I missed earlier when we were talking that you would get an automatic aid engine. And I heard you say a BC. Oh, no, maybe you did say an engine too.
And it can be an automatic aid engine or a truck. It's whatever's closest. On the south end, usually we'll get an automatic aid aerial.
Okay, so what's the squad number that was?
Squad 7.3.
7.3, and your battalion is?
Battalion 7.1.
7.1, and the SAM vehicle was?
SAM 7.1.
7.1. Okay, so this comes in for engine 7.3, squad 7.3, truck 75, truck 74 replacing, 75 is replacing the engine, truck 74, medic 74, medic 75, squad 73, battalion 71, SAM 71, battalion 61, and engine 63.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. And I know some of you are out there saying, holy cow, what we would give to have that as our first alarm assignment. And the truth of the matter is, in some places they're gifted with staffing, and in some places they're cursed with staffing. So clearly we can see from this first alarm assignment to a reported structure fire that Thornton may be on the side of being more on the gifted side of staffing, which, as the story plays out, might show to be an advantage. And it might show that even with this staffing, they might have been challenged as well. We'll just see how the story plays out. So,
and I also think something of note that we have an advantage is our medic units and our squad. Those are 2-person independent fire companies. They don't need to team up, meet up. They can go as Med 7.4 and complete fire attack with the 2 of them, or search. So that's not 3 medic units sitting outside waiting for a patient or establishing medical. Those are interior fire companies.
Do you have one that does do that though? Dedicated to?
Our second due med unit is responsible for medical,
and
then
for victims for
Okay.
And then we'll transition into rehab.
Okay. First arriving is what?
Engine 7.3
and
squad 7.3 arrived together.
Okay. And what do they say?
So engine 7.3 did a really good size up. They sized up a small single-family 2-story dwelling with light smoke showing from some vents and from the eaves. No smoke pushing. It was hard to discern exactly like where the smoke was coming from because the smoke was gray. It turns out this is a kind of a cold smoke environment. Crews didn't know that at that time. We'll get into that. But also the temperature outside, just a really gray day. The smoke was just kind of hanging around. So it was difficult to really discern immediately upon arrival of smoke conditions. It's easy for us when we can see, black smoke pushing, or we're lucky enough to see flames. So this was, they knew that they had a fire of some sort. They weren't exactly sure. I think most people were thinking it was in the attic based on conditions, and I would agree with that.
Now, Bret, you called this a small residential, so frame that up as to what small means in Thornton.
We've adopted the blue card model, so a small structure means that you can get to the seat of the fire with our pre-connects, which are 200 feet in length. You can reach that fire with 200-foot pre-connect.
Okay.
So this house was about 1,850 square feet with a finished basement, 2-story. So that we consider that a small structure.
Attached garage.
Attached garage.
2-car. Okay. Estimate for me about what era this house was built in, so we get an idea of construction.
It was built in 1996.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Kind of right in the middle of the city of Thornton.
Okay. All right. So they get on the scene. They report that size up. Keep talking me through things here.
So they, the company officer, they were a crew of, they had 4 on their engine, and then they had 2 on the squad. So he does his size up. He goes into a 360. It's standard for us. He declares an offensive strategy, stretching 1 3/4 inch pre-connect to the front door on the alpha side. Company officer does a 360. On his 360 follow-up report, he noted that there was smoke on the first floor that he could see through the windows. He could not see through the windows of the basement, and there were no indications, according to him, of any type of basement involvement at that time. So his crew stretched the line to the alpha door, and the squad, he delegated the squad as an out team, an out crew. So the out crew's responsibilities are to maintain that first in line, the safety for that first in hose line team. So they help facilitate the first line, make sure it's in place, ready to go, address any kinks, and then they can pull a backup line, because we know we're going to need a backup line. They can secure utilities, they can throw a ladder, they can do other things that they can't immediately stop doing to address any safety concerns with that primary entry team. So that's what they did. They had to force the door. The door was locked, and they didn't have any problems forcing the door to make entry. Accountability location was established by the company officer, which was going to be the alpha side at engine 7.3. They struck a major incident tone, and for us, that just advises some of our chief staff that we have an incident working in our city, and it also gives us that backup battalion notification. So then we have a backup battalion chief that will, handle the rest of the calls that are happening in the city, and also notifies any fire investigators that we need to, start responding to the scene. So they go to the door, and it was a senior fire medic, Otero, and then we had a probationary firefighter on that crew that day. And it was the 2 of them forcing the door. They stretched the line, no problems. They forced it conventionally. They got in the door. Smoke was to the floor, moderate heat. Smoke was not pushing, but it was cold outside and it was warm inside. So they immediately fogged over their masks, and they had to wipe those clean. But according to them, visibility was 0. So they move in. They did a little bit of floor sounding. The senior fire medic pulled some ceiling from the first floor. Coming into the scene, they were kind of thinking attic fire. So even though he went in on the first floor, he still pulled some ceiling just to try to get, see if there's anything above him. They go inside together with the line. And once they go in about 12 feet from the alpha side door, they notice a small amount of fire off to their left. They can kind of see the orange glow. They notice that it's coming up from the floor along the wall. And so they open the nozzle, they knock that down. At that point, the senior fire medic knew that the fire was below them, so they came back out, and they did a face-to-face communication with their company officer that this is a possible basement fire, there's fire below us. And then that got transmitted over to the radio to the battalion chief that there's a possible basement fire.
Is the battalion on the scene yet?
The battalion is on the scene during that communication.
So did the battalion assume the command?
There was a transfer of command.
Oh, there was a transfer of command. So the company officer isn't the IC anymore. It's been transferred to the battalion chief.
Yeah.
Okay. So the BC is alerted to the fact that the fire is below them in the basement.
Yeah, and the verbiage used from the first due company officer was, there's possible fire in the basement.
Okay. All right, keep going.
So during that time frame, the incident commander also noticed some water leaking out of the Bravo side of the house from a hose bib, which turns out it was connected actually to the sump pump. So, and there were a couple people on some crews that on their way up to the house, they stated to me that they did notice some water coming out of the sill plate where that PVC pipe is attached to the house. It was leaking next to the siding at that sill plate area, but it didn't really register in their brains. And I put myself in their position. I don't think it would either, because we live in Colorado, and a lot of our houses with basements have sump pumps, like many of them. So that time of year with rain, snow, whatever, it's not atypical for somebody's sump pump to be running. So, but he picked up on that, and it was pretty amazing from his command post in his BC car, kind of across the street, backed into halfway into somebody's driveway. He was able to notice that. So as operations were continuing, he requested a little more further investigation on that water leaking. And he also requested that first due company officer, what's the status of the basement? And that's when that communication came out from him, the first due officer, that we do have possible fire in the basement. So that all just kind of happened pretty quickly at the same time, a couple minutes in from that first due engine arriving on scene.
Okay.
So they move inside, they find the fire, they move out, they're going to go back, they're going to find the stairs to the basement. So we have other units showing up, and in our system, we level 1 stage. It gives that first due officer a little bit of time to kind of grasp what's going on, and then be able to assign resources as needed, based on conditions and the strategy and everything. So they go inside, they do a really good job. Engine 7-3 did a really good job on this call. They find the door to the basement, which is right behind the front door, and we have pictures of it. Almost to the fact that, I put myself again in that situation. I would think that door, which is right inside the front door, they're like almost on top of each other, to the point that if you open the basement door to go down the stairs, you open that door, it chokes off like 75% of the entry door on the alpha side, the front door of the house. Mm-hmm. So that actually presented some challenges with facilitating the hose down into the basement. That officer had to request assistance moving that hose down into the basement because of that choke point. So they found that door, and to me, that's like where a closet door should be. They couldn't see the stairs going upstairs as they moved in. They knew it was somewhere on their left side, but it presented more as a place for a closet door, because typically you find a closet door right behind the front door.
Great. Great.
So they found that door. They go downstairs. The senior guy in Engine 7-3 stated that he could see some of the stairs going down along the wall. He could not make out the first landing. So they proceed. There was no real change in the heat. There wasn't any, violent smoke pushing up the chimney of the stairwell. They move down in an upright manner, kind of sounding with their feet as they go with their hose line down the stairs. They make it down to the first landing. They go to turn to go down the second set of stairs, and it's pretty dark. They can't see anything down there. Again, no real change in heat or smoke. They don't see any fire at this point. That senior fire medic goes to take the first step on the stairs, and the second set of stairs collapse, and he actually starts to fall. So, and his probie is right behind him, and probationary firefighter Morris did a really good job listening to his company officer and listening to his senior guy throughout his probationary period. And he was right there, and he actually grabbed Perry Otero, and they both fell back onto the landing. So they had their own near miss.
Wow.
in itself. So when that happened, that's when Roy's crew came in. They got assigned to do a primary search of the first floor. And we still don't know exactly the location of the fire or how much fire there really is at this point. So do you want to speak on?
Sure. Can I pause and make an assumption that when those stairs gave way, there was no more going into the basement?
in other words, the line didn't continue to advance down. They stopped, right?
They stopped,
Yeah.
and they're actually laying on their backs, on their butts.
Okay.
And at that time is when they heard, when I interviewed 21 people directly involved in this incident. And when I interviewed Engine 7-3, senior guy Perry Otero and probationary firefighter Morris, they said that the after falling back onto the landing, they said they heard a sound, and they described it to me as the house collapsing on top of them. So that's what they thought. That's what was going through their brain. So they went from Perry almost doing a nose dive, doing a header into, you know, who knows what basement because the stairs are burned out, falling down, hearing a noise that they initially thought the house was collapsing on them. So then they immediately said, we got to get out of here because there's a collapse, to then hearing a very crystal clear, calm, but also urgent Mayday radio communication, because what they heard was Roy falling through the floor, kind of hitting the HVAC system, which was right on the other side of the wall from where Engine 7-3 was on the landing, and then falling through the basement and everything associated.
So the timing of those two events were coincidental.
Yes. And so, you know, they're like on a roller coaster of emotions at this point. They go from the near miss on the stairs to a possible collapse to then hearing a Mayday. And then, you know, they did a really good job instantly knowing how, you know, these Maydays go. They're a primary interior company that may be involved in that rescue.
Okay.
At that point.
Well, let's pause from the Mayday and back it up to your arrival, Roy, what you saw, what your crew was talking about, what your assignment was, what your action plan was, and take us all the way through up to and including the Mayday.
Sure, yeah. So we were en route. We heard the initial radio report from the Engine 7-3 officer, light smoke from the roof. And then in my head, I was thinking attic fire off the bat. I had that Proby with me, probationary Van Distel, and I was excited for him because it was his first fire. It was about 4 months into his start, so we were getting a job for him. So I wanted to get him some actual search time on a real fire. So since I was the only regular guy in the crew, I was taking it upon myself to be the senior guy and give him directions of what's going on. So as we're going to the fire, we're getting ready. I'm talking to him the whole time. Look, we're going to do this. Follow me. Stay on my hip. We'll do a search when we get there. Kind of in between getting there and all the radio traffic, I didn't hear anything. I heard the initial report, and then right before we entered, I heard a request to help hose pump in, and everything in between was just not heard by me.
Okay, not heard because the radio wasn't loud enough, or not heard because you just were in a different zone and just
I was task fixated. I was ready to help my Proby get some search time.
So there's actually some radio traffic there that you were not attuned to and missed.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, not uncommon,
right?
But probably a good point to note.
Yeah, for sure. So then also the engineer was out of his district. He was trying his best. We missed the turn initially, so we had to do a U-turn on the major street and come back around. So there was a lot of frustration there because we wanted to be on and get a good assignment. Our officer was acting out of class, wasn't really providing direct leadership because I guess he was assuming I was a senior guy and having me call all the shots there. So there wasn't any communication as far as getting everybody on the same page or any true leadership in that sense. So when we arrived on scene, there's a good 5-6 minutes between our assignment and us actually entering. There was some delay there. We were on the lawn for a little bit waiting for a crew member. So that added more frustration.
You know you have to, I'm going to ask you. 5 or 6 minutes waiting for what?
For the officer to get ready to have us maintain crew unity and enter the structure.
As a crew of how many? Four.
So 3 of us got out of the rig initially, walked to the scene. We initially staged level 1 when we arrived, and then we were assigned primary search. We were parked 1 turn away, so I didn't have a view of the building when we got there. But in my head already, I was thinking attic fire. The truck 74 was on scene. They established on the front side and flew the stick to the roof.
Yeah, so Yeah, so a couple units didn't level one stage and they just went to the scene. The truck 74 was one of them. And they did a good job positioning for an attic fire because that's kind of how everything was being perceived. So when Roy was walking up to the house, he could see the aerial to the roof. He could see a crew going up to, investigate a possible attic fire, maybe do some, we still vertically vent at our fire department. So that's his snapshot there. And during that, during that operation, there was radio communication, further radio communication from the IC and the truck 74 officer that don't open the roof. This looks like it's all lower level stuff. A lot of key, situational awareness things as far as radio communication that did not get picked up completely by the crew that was now about to enter the building to search the first floor.
Okay. As that traffic was being aired, we were on the lawn masking up, getting ready to go.
Okay.
So
you didn't hear anything about the fire being in the basement?
No.
Okay.
Not at all. And if you take a snapshot of what he's talking about, all the visual cues on the whole scene point to an attic fire, or at least something going on the second floor. What, like he said, with a stick up, everybody's outside. He sees a line going in, thinks it's going upstairs, a little bit hazy visibility, and just all his visual cues were pointing to either the roof or the second floor. And a couple audible ones too, because it still went through with a full roof report. The truck officer requested advisement on status of the second floor. And there's just a lot of things that were still pointing to the roof with some basement and lower level cues kind of thrown in there. It was developing into more of the basement, but at the time, that snapshot right there, it was, I would say 75%, above the first floor even, let alone thinking about going to the basement.
Yeah, now is maybe not the time to have the conversation, but at some point, being that house isn't old enough to be balloon construction, I'm going to be curious as to how that smoke condition was getting from the basement fire to the attic and what that route of travel was and how that occurred. And we don't have to talk about it now, but I'm sure at some point we'll swing back and kind of fill in those dots, because that's, if it's balloon construction, you think fire or smoke in the attic, fire in the basement. But when you have something built in 96, that's probably not foremost on your radar to be thinking that.
Yep.
All right, Roy.
So our fourth member arrives. We're ready to go in. There's, like I said, there's a good delay between the initial airing of our assignment to actually us entering. So we proceed inside. It's a narrow entrance. There's two hose lines there. There's a crew manning as an out team. There's another crew helping hose in. So there's a bottleneck coming into that front door.
And it's a small area. Yeah, it's a tight entryway, a small porch.
Got the basement configuration
right there behind the front door. So you put two firefighters in that area, and you're going to be bumping into each other. Let alone you've got a couple different companies in that area.
Yeah, it would be hectic on a medical call.
Yeah, right.
Let alone with the CBAs.
Right.
It's basically the width of a staircase that goes down, a staircase that goes up, and then the front room with 3 to 4 feet of width. So there was 7 people.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of bodies there in the front area.
Yeah.
So I took a peek at the house before going in, and I told the probie we're going to do a left-hand search just off the profile of how the structure was established. We went into the entrance, and then I saw the stairs going upstairs, and then hose lines, and then I didn't really get a good look at the basement stairs going down. Straight ahead of me was part of the kitchen to the right, and then the living room to the left.
What was the smoke condition like at that point, Roy?
Light smoke. I could see my feet.
Okay.
And then I already had the idea that it was an attic fire, so I didn't think about sounding.
Okay. So did the smoke condition change from that first arriving saying 0 vis, or was it because they were fogged over, or did the smoke condition improve?
It did. It got a little better because there was some time in between.
Okay. So. All right.
My mask did condense when I entered. It was warm. I did one swipe, and I was able to see after that.
Okay.
I could see the window to the kitchen. Not clearly. I could see the outline and light coming in, but it was light haze and then like light to moderate heat. So I passed the hose line and I start making my left-hand search into that first living room area. That wall where the hose line was put initially to put the fire out was my first look. I saw something rectangular and dark on the ground. I thought it was a bookcase. It may have just been part of the fire that was burning already. So I took a peek to see if there's anyone behind that area. I didn't really see anyone. And my first step into the living room, I fell straight to the basement. Initially, I reached out to try to catch myself. There was a little resistance, but that gave instantly. And then I ended up falling into the basement on my butt.
Thank you, Fire-Medic Roy Lapid, Captain Bret, Wentworth, and Lieutenant Cody Larson, for sharing your time and experience with us today. Remember that this is part 1 of a 3-part interview, so be sure to tune in next week for part 2. Well, I never thought we'd make it this far, but here we are. We're fast approaching our 5th anniversary, and I'm very proud that we are the longest running, consistently broadcasted, independently operated show focused on a singular mission, and that is to improve the safety and survival of individuals and teams who work in high-risk, high-consequence environments. Let me pause for a moment and elaborate on one small component of that last statement, the consistently broadcasted part. A new episode of this show has been released every Tuesday for the past 5 years. I've not missed putting out a new episode on a Tuesday. Never, ever have I missed. No other podcaster in this space can make that claim. In fact, most podcasters fade out after just a dozen or so episodes, or they become very inconsistent in airing new episodes. Not me. You can set your clock by the fact that I'm going to release a new episode every Tuesday morning. There's going to be a fresh show there for you to watch or listen to. It's my promise to you. Now, I have to admit that it is not always an easy promise to keep. My travel schedule means that sometimes I'm recording these shows or editing these shows well after midnight on a Monday night because I know I have to keep my promise and have that new episode ready for you by Tuesday morning. And I totally understand why other podcasters fade or become inconsistent. It can become pretty lonely here behind the microphone or the camera. And by lonely, I mean we podcasters, videocasters, we rarely get any feedback from you, the listeners and viewers. Sure, we see the stats telling us that our shows are getting downloaded thousands of times, but rarely does anyone ever write a review or send an email saying, hey, thanks for the show, or here's some feedback about this episode that I liked. Hardly ever happens. So I rarely know if the show is inspiring others or it's not. And I just keep on keeping on and continue to put out what I think is the best possible safety-focused content that I can. Now, to honor those who watch and listen to this show, I'm going to do a giveaway of products and from our sponsors and supporters, like hats like this from Midwest Fire, or sweatshirts like this from Midwest Fire. Pretty amazing. Let me make sure I got the view here. Look at that. Pretty amazing stuff. And other things, other bling from our sponsors. So listen to the upcoming episode and watch SAMatters.com website for more on that.
Real expectations, because SA matters.
Know your limit. Know your partner's limit, because SA matters. Assumptions are bad. SA matters.
Proper PPE is important, because SA matters.
Flawed situational awareness is a really big deal. SA matters. Know your water supply, because SA matters. Bears and Cougars, SA matters. Go versus no-go, because SA matters.
Confidence is good. Overconfidence is bad. SA matters.
Buddies matter, because SA matters. SA matters, so don't get angry. When the pigs are eating lemons, SA matters.
Our academy class is going home today because we know that SA matters.
SA matters!
The SA Matters show was launched in 2014 with a purpose, to give a platform to those who've had near-miss events to share their stories, just like the ones you listen to here. And when I'm on the road delivering classes on situational awareness, I often ask the attendees if they've ever had a near-miss event, and they share some amazing stories. It's stories like that I listen to in the classroom, and stories like this you're listening to here from Thornton Fire, that it motivated me to launch this podcast in the first place. So those lessons could be shared with a bigger audience. That bigger audience? That's you. The Situational Awareness Matters show, podcasted as SAMatters Radio, and our companion television show, SAMatters TV, on YouTube, along with other videos we've posted there, have had more than 800,000 downloads. That number blows my mind and far exceeds all my expectations. And I'm so thankful for you, for your support. I feel so honored to be able to provide the platform that these amazing stories get to be shared. If you like the show, please do me a solid favor. Subscribe. It's easy. For the audio version, it's SAMatters Radio on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, or iHeartRadio. For the video version, it's SAMatters TV on YouTube. If you find value in the show, I'd really appreciate it if you'd give it a rating. Write a review, put a comment in there. It's your ratings and reviews that help others to find the show. And more importantly, your feedback provided to me inspires me to work harder for you. Since 2007, Situational Awareness Matters instructors have helped more than 1,300 organizations and have trained more than 75,000 individuals on improving high-risk decision-making, including first responders, industrial workers, military personnel, business leaders, medical professionals, utility workers, highway workers, public transportation operators, aviation workers, oil refinery operators, and many, many more. If you or someone you know works in a high-risk, high-consequence decision-making environment, then we're here to help improve your safety and your survival and to help you accomplish the most important mission of all, and that's to go home to the ones who love you. I would like to take a moment to honor and thank the companies, organizations, agencies, and departments that have hosted recent Situational Awareness Matters training programs for their team members. The Baytown Fire Department in Baytown, Texas. The Ponderosa Fire Department in Houston, Texas. The Northwest Volunteer Fire Department, also in Houston, Texas. The National Fire Service Staff and Command Program in Towson, Maryland.
I think Rich's ability to connect with any crowd, that's a gift that he has, and it's easily transferable.
This is the second or third time that I've heard him speak. There's some teeth to the information that he brings.
It's been really good. Good mixes. He knows when to throw in a joke here and there to get you back involved.
Some tools. I'm a new lieutenant, so very, very interesting. And some of these things I can take back to the station and use with some of the new firefighters I have on my crew.
Something to get you thinking about your job more, big picture type stuff. I've seen him before. A good review for sure.
I have heard him before, yes. After he speaks, there's usually an enlightenment because now they're more aware of what's going on around them and what they're experiencing as they respond to calls.
He's very, very knowledgeable. I'm enjoying it so far.
And that intuition, that's a big one. The video that he just showed up here, we're getting a lot out of this. I think this is a really good seminar, especially for new people and old. But I think it's very informative. This talk gives us more ammunition to do all three.
They're relatable to what we have experienced or very well could experience, so he makes it easy to let the knowledge sink in.
I mean, it's awesome. A lot of stories you can usually relate to yourself and calls you have been on, aha moment. Like, he just helps you focus on picking out the right things. It's awesome. It's a refresher and keeps my eyes open. It's good stuff.
If people listen to the message that he has, it's an incredible message delivered by a very compassionate person. Strategy and tactics are going to always change. Situational awareness it doesn't change. It's always there.
He's got some good stories to tell, and he's very thorough with his stories, and it's interesting listening to him.
Very clear speaker, and he talks on our level because he's been there, he's been in the trenches. I think he's doing well, and I'm looking forward to the second half.
If you're interested in knowing where we're going to be upcoming, here's the schedule. March 25 to April 3, we're going to be at the Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard in Oahu, Hawaii. April 11th, we're going to be at the Fire Department Instructors Conference in Indianapolis, Indiana. April 14 to 16, we're traveling to Washington State for the Washington Fire Training Officers Association Conference in Wenatchee. April 25th, we're going to be going to Georgia for the International Association of Fire Chiefs Company Officer Leadership Series in Atlanta. April 27th, we're heading back to northern Minnesota to the Cook County Emergency Management Agency Seminar in Grand Marais. And then April 30 to May 1, we're going to North Carolina, to the new Hanover County Fire Department's Fire Officer Seminar in Wilmington. Then on May 7th, we head to Indiana, to the Scott Township Fire Department in Evansville. And then on May 8th, down to Nashville for the Fast 19 conference. And then on May 21, back to Washington State for the Washington Fire Chiefs Association Conference in Kennewick. If you want to see the locations of all the upcoming events, just head over to the SAMatters.com website. All the upcoming events are listed there for you to view. Maybe I'll be somewhere near you, and you can swing by and attend a program. If you're interested in hosting a program, just click on the Contact Us tab on the top of the SAMatters.com homepage, and I'll give you a call. If you want to become part of the SA Matters community of learners, there are several ways that you can do that. Check the show notes for how you can get connected with us by signing up for our monthly newsletter, subscribing to the SA Matters radio podcast, subscribing to the SA Matters TV YouTube channel, and how to follow us on our social media channels of Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. There we share ideas about how to improve situational awareness, how to make better decisions under stress, and how to improve the skills of critical thinking and resilient problem solving. Well, that's it. Episode 256 of the Situational Awareness Matters show is complete. Thank you again to our guests, Thornton Fire-Medic Roy Lapid, Thornton Fire Captain Bret Wentworth, and Thornton Fire Lieutenant Cody Larson, for sharing your time and experience with us. Thank you to our awesome sponsor, Midwest Fire. Hey, if you're in the market for a pumper, tanker, or brush truck, check them out at MidwestFire.com. Thank you to our associate sponsor, Chief Miller. Thank you to all the companies, agencies, and organizations that have hosted recent Situational Awareness Matters training programs. Thank you to all the organizations that have hosted a live stream training program where I come to your organization live via the internet and train your members. Thank you to the more than 2,500 students and graduates of the highly acclaimed Situational Awareness Matters Online Academy. The feedback I receive from Online Academy graduates is just amazing and very humbling, and I thank you for that. And most importantly, thank you, the listeners and viewers of this show, for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I really appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters radio show with Dr. Richard B. Gassaway. If you are interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit SAMatters.com. If you are interested in booking Dr. Gassaway for an upcoming event, visit his personal website at richgassaway.com.